vegetable of this summer. I'm sure you've seen it everywhere, and I'm sure you're thinking about eating a whole cucumber today. So I am going to show you 2 delicious ways to make it. And as always, I'm going to talk about ways that you can substitute it to make it right for your dietary lifestyle. So the first one that we're going to talk about is a tzatziki-inspired version, but with a couple of twists and turns. So let's talk about the way that you've probably seen the cucumber being prepared, and that is by using a mandolin. So a mandolin, it can be a little bit intimidating because it definitely has this sharp blade, and you do want to be aware of that. So this is not something that I would say, while you can let your kids help with mixing the ingredients, adults, let's take the mandolin on hand for us. Most of the mandolins, this one I got at ShopRite, they come with a helper, and it's got these little notches on the edge that help to hold the cucumber in place, or whatever it is that you are cutting. I find that for the cucumber, I have a little bit more control without using this, but I think that this is good if you're doing potatoes or onions, which you can also do on here. So for the sake of the cucumber, I do like to cut it in half because I like to have control over it. Whereas if you're doing it from whole, which you can, I just don't like the control as much. So I prefer to wash it and then cut it in half, and then you're good to go. My biggest thing that I would say from myself using it is you don't realize how fast it's cutting, and all of a sudden you are getting closer to that blade, and when you get in a rhythm, you don't really notice. So just as it gets shorter, just start to pay attention, and don't feel like you have to go all the way to the edge. There we go. I just love something that makes it easier to cut a vegetable too. And just like I know in my time of counseling people, when we talk about water consumption, sometimes by telling someone to drink water from a cup with a straw makes all the difference in being able to get enough hydration. Sometimes eating a cucumber in these nice uniform slices with the right flavoring, all of a sudden you find that you love a vegetable that you didn't know that you loved. And the nice thing about cucumbers, especially right now, is they are so high in water content, very similar to watermelon in that way. And that high water content is great for hydration through your food, which we love. All right, so that is 1 whole cucumber, and that is good to go for right now. Now let's start to make our tzatziki-inspired dish. So I'm going to cut up a green onion first. Unfortunately, we cannot do this on the mandolin, but if you want to be more trendy, you could take a clean pair of food scissors and you could chop it right into your bowl. I'm going to be boring and just use a knife. All right, put that in there. And then I am going to take a clove of garlic. And if you like it, I'm just going to clean this out a little bit. I was making stuff with garlic earlier today. If you like garlic, then have at it the way that I am doing right now. If you don't, then instead of crushing it like this, just chop it into bigger pieces, because doing it this way is going to make it much more potent. And let's just say people are going to know you eat garlic. That's where we're headed with this. All right. Now, what do I want to do next? I'll do my Icelandic yogurt. So this is similar to Greek yogurt. I think it's better if you like a thicker, creamier consistency. It's got less liquid in it. You can see it's very, very solid by comparison to some other yogurts. Can be a little bit more of that liquid. So I'm doing a good 1/4 cup of the yogurt, and I'm using a plain. Then I am going to do a little bit of lemon juice. And the fun thing with this recipe is most tzatziki, it is a big yogurt to cucumber ratio in terms of the yogurt as the base. This we flipped it, which I think is such a smart thing to do when it comes to getting to like your vegetables. Because if you like vegetables with a dip, why not emphasize that flavor? But by upping the vegetable content, now you're eating more of the good nutritious thing, but you're still getting the taste that you want. And part of where that taste is coming from is we have some ranch dip powder. So I am going to use about a teaspoon of this. And this definitely takes it away from that traditional tzatziki, but it brings it into that really flavorful land of a ranch dip. And then we've got some dill here, some fresh organic dill. And I am going to chop that. Again, if you have your scissors, you can do that this way. Or you can just use dried dill if you don't want to chop it. and it's easier for you to have that on hand. And there's some dill in that ranch. And I know this seems like a lot of ingredients, and you definitely can mix and match to your heart's desire, but packing such a punch into a vegetable that really absorbs so much of that flavor, it's a fun way to experiment. So I'm putting in some pepperoncini brine, and that's going to add that pickling flavor, but with a little kick. And then lastly, the ingredient that has probably also crossed your eyes lately is some MSG. Now, MSG stands for monosodium glutamate, and really all it is a salt molecule attached to a glutamic acid molecule. It is actually per teaspoon lower than regular table salt. 1 teaspoon of this has about 480 milligrams of sodium, whereas a regular teaspoon of table salt has 2,300. So using this, it's a pure umami flavor. So if you've ever heard that term, it's that living in between kind of a salty, savory. You probably heard it as it's referred to in soy sauce, naturally in mushrooms. You've probably heard it when chefs talk about their cooking. So I am just doing a little sprinkle of this. And by not including the salt in this recipe, we're actually making it a lower sodium dish. And a little tip, if you're still afraid of the mandolin, there are 2 other things that you could do to cut your cucumbers. You can use a vegetable peeler and just do ribbons. You can also, if you have a spiralizer from a few years ago when those were popular, all you have to do, if you have one of those, you put it on the setting that's going to do the widest ribbons. You'd make an indentation in the cucumber, and then when you put it on the wheel, that indentation is going to cut the cucumber so you can actually make those ribbons, but it won't be connected. And that might feel a lot more comfortable than using the mandolin if you're a little bit too intimidated by that. All right, mix that together, and my goodness, you are going to be the hit of those end of summer barbecues for bringing the vegetable of the summer. This beautiful cucumber salad, Tzatziki-Inspired, but with a few twists. And then because cucumbers are just everywhere right now, why do one recipe when I could show you a second? And what I want to do with this one is talk a little bit more about substitutions. Really with this, the only substitution that you can do, and very easy to do, get a coconut plain yogurt if you are looking to make this plant-based. And then instead of the dairy, everything else, you're good to go. But if you want to make it plant-based, just swap out the Icelandic yogurt for a plant-based yogurt that's plain. Another option is if you've seen kind of a peanut-style vinaigrette, peanut butter vinaigrette, for these ones that we're going to make now, I like to use tahini. And I love this one because it is shelf-stable. And instead of having to scrape it out of the jar, we can just squeeze it right on there. Then I'm going to use some coconut aminos. If you are gluten-free, if you're looking to limit that sodium, coconut aminos is perfect in place of soy sauce. And what I love about these recipes that you're probably seeing is they are all about your personal preference. Not a lot of measuring. Sure, you can hear teaspoon here, quarter cup there, but ultimately it's what you want. So I like vinegary things. So I'm going to go heavy-handed on the rice wine vinegar. And then just add a dash of sesame oil. And then for spice, I'm using some of our Bowl Basket hot honey instead of using a chili oil. And that's going to add that sweetness that we're looking for. And then a dash of fish sauce. And if you don't have the fish sauce, if it's not something that you have on hand, that's okay. It does add a certain punch, but you can absolutely enjoy it without. I am going to add another green onion because to me, cucumbers and onions are just best friends. And I think that they need each other to make a delicious dish. Alrighty. And then I'm going to do garlic again. And like I said, this is just me sort of playing around with the concept. You can make this however you want based on what you're seeing. And if there are elements of it that you don't enjoy, then leave those out and play up the flavors that you do like. What have we got? Oh, just got to do a little bit of that MSG. The salt, I think, is very important in a cucumber salad, whether using an MSG or using just a regular salt, because it's going to draw some of that liquid out of the cucumber, make the cucumbers crunchier, but it's just going to add into the water. I'm going to wipe this off. Okay. Mix this around. And that is two totally different flavor profiles, but equally delicious ways to eat the vegetable of the season. Maybe you have some growing in a home garden this summer, or maybe you go to ShopRite and pick up a bunch off your shelf. Either way, you are going to be good to go with both of these recipes. Make sure to like and follow for more.